Hello everyone, it's Lindsay and I'm bringing you a video today for Sonshine Stamp Co. And it's going to be a pretty simple process. I'm going to be using this set here. This is the Swirls and Stars set. This one is the Just My Type. And then I pulled Lisa's letters. I ended up not using this stamp set, but that stamp set is still available over at Sonshine Stamp Co. So check that out. I'm going to be doing a simple ink smooshing technique for the background. And I'm working in Hosea chapter 6 verse 3. And I'm just putting a piece of paper towel behind my page, and then I'm propping up the other side of my Bible. My Bible's getting really full, so I needed it to be a little flatter. What I have here is some packaging from some stickers, and I'm just going to smush, hence ink smooshing, smush some of that ink onto that packaging, add some water to it, and then flip it over and smush it on my page. Now, my page is not prepped with gesso. This is just a bare page, so distress inks do bleed through the page, but that's okay. I'm not overly concerned. With this technique, I can always use the bleed through on the other side for a background. So I went ahead and smushed that in the lightest color. That first color there was Tumbled Glass. Now I'm going to pick up some Broken China. And the more water that you add, the messier this is. So if you want really concentrated color and not a lot of mess, add a little bit of water. If you add a lot of water, it gets really kind of just messy and wet, and it's hard to maneuver the ink. So you just have to kind of experiment and play around. I am drying in between layers. This ink is water reactive, so it will reactivate once that second layer goes over the top of it. But if you leave everything wet and just keep adding the colors in, it becomes just kind of a really muddled, wet mess. So I like to dry my layers. This color here is Stormy Sky. It's kind of a bluish gray color. And this is just a really loose technique. So if you're a perfectionist, this may not be for you. You can't really control the outcome. It's pretty much just lay it down, smush it, and see what happens. So I decided I needed a little more contrast. So I'm going to pull out Chipped Sapphire. This is a darker blue color. And smush some of that onto that plastic packaging. Wet it. And then flip that over and smush it onto the page. You can see that adds just some contrast and deepens that color a little bit. And so I'm putting the color heavier in the top left-hand corner and then letting it kind of sprinkle out into the rest of the page. And so you can see here it's all dry. Now I tried to add some droplets of water and pick up some of the ink, but because I was drying these layers and I'm working on an unprepped surface, I wasn't really able to pull up much ink. And you can see here the bleed through wasn't horrible on the background. So at first I pulled out these Lisa's letters. These are super cute alphabet stamps, but this word Grace wasn't going to fit in the margin there. So I'm just going to do all of my stamping in the Just My Type. These were designed by Bridget from the team. I will have all of the products linked down in the description box down below this video, so be sure to check that out. And I'm going to be stamping with VersaFine Onyx Black ink. And I like this ink because it gives you a really crisp image. Now, when I stamped this down, I realized I probably should have put a piece of cardstock behind this page instead of the paper towel, so it's a little bit distressed looking, but I end up thinking that's okay. It kind of goes with the background, so it's all right. But if you want a really good impression, you want to put something kind of hard underneath your page before you stamp. So I'm going to stamp out Grace Like Rain. And then there's these cute little raindrops in the Swirls and Stars set. This was designed by Ashley from the team. And I'm going to be stamping these little raindrops using some StazOn Cloudy Sky ink. So this is a dark gray ink. It's a little bit darker than what I wanted, but that's okay. What I do is I stamp it down and then I stamp it again so I get a ghosting. So I have some dark and light raindrops around the page. So I'm just going to go ahead and stamp these. StazOn does bleed through the page as well as the VersaFine, so this page on the back side I will have to do something to cover up the bleed through. And actually this stamping bled through way more than the Distress ink even bled through. So it is what it is. I'll work with it when I get to the page on the back. And again, I'm working in Hosea chapter 6, verse 3. Be sure to head on over to the Sonshine Stamp Co blog. I'll have a blog post that goes along with this. It talks a little bit more about the verse and my thoughts on that. As I finish up stamping here, I decided I'm going to add some splatters using some white acrylic paint. I wanted to kind of knock back some of the rain stamps. It was a little bit darker than I had intended, so I'm just going to add some more layers. And this is kind of how I work with these kind of mixed media style pages, is just lots of layers. Just keep adding different things until you get it how you want it. So I've diluted that paint a little bit, and then I'm just tapping my brush over my page. Anywhere where that paint is covering the words, I just pick it up with my paper towel while it's still wet. This is a pretty opaque paint, so I don't want to prevent myself from being able to read any of the words on this page. I'm just going to go ahead and add some of those. And then I decide to also add in some Hickory Smoke Distress ink. So I'm going to smush that out onto my acrylic block. And I really like this particular block because it has the grid lines on it, so it made it really easy to stamp out all my lettering straight. So I went ahead and added some water to that, and then I'll sprinkle that over the page as well. I'm going to go ahead and use my Faber-Castell Pitt pen in the small tip to underline the verse. And then I pulled out some washi tapes. This is a black and white cross washi. And I just felt like the page needed a little more detail. I wanted to keep this very simple today. I have a lot of journaling I'm going to do on the side, but I felt like it did need a little more details. I'll go ahead and add that to the top and the bottom. I also have this thin washi from Illustrated Faith. I'll link that down below. And it talks about grace, so it went perfectly with this particular page. So I'll go ahead and add some of that to the bottom here. And when I flip this over to trim the extra tape off, you'll be able to see the bleed through. So you can see here the ink from the stamping bled through way more than the distress inks. Some of the distress ink colors bleed horribly bad, and then others, like these light blues, don't bleed quite as much. So if you don't want bleed through, then don't use distress inks in your Bible without prepping your page. But prepping takes too much time. I don't have time for that. So that's about it for the page. I'll go ahead and top it off with this really cute little rainbow clippy that I got in some Happy Mail, and I'll do some journaling off camera. So be sure to check out the Sonshine Stamp Co blog to see my post that goes along with this, as well as a post from the other gals as they are working this month. And subscribe to my channel if you're not already subscribed, and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. And until next time, thank you so much. Bye-bye.